All right, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. The reason why I wanted to do this, I needed to do an emergency broadcast because I realized I didn't finish part of my discussion, my discursive talk, my verbal essay about the career and the long term, the kind of the the substantiveness, the substantiality, and the recurring significance and relevance and epitomizing certain aspects of the culture of a continuously relevant. He's been relevant now for 3 decades, 4 decades. And I sort of got diverted. I started talking about Taylor Swift, and I kind of got off track. But of course, I'm talking about none other than Billy Ray Cyrus. And I didn't get that far in the discussion. I got diverted. I started, where I left off, I was talking about mid-career. Of course, Hannah Montana. He's in Hannah Montana. Not to mention that. So that was what 2003 to 2008 or something. Whole generation of kids raised on this shit. And I heard fucking G.E. Smith, guitar player. He's played with a lot of people. Played with Bowie. Played with Saturday Night Live band. He's like kind of the famous like blonde, late 80s. He's on every commercial break. He's I like him. I like his vibe. His stories are really great. Look him up on YouTube. He's a great storyteller, a great musician. He played with Bob. He played with Bob in the late 80s for like a few years while he was doing Saturday Night Live. So he started out with Hall & Oates. He's had quite a career. But I listened to him on WTF with Mark Maron. Mark Maron was kind of condescending to him. He just wanted to talk about guitars. But G.E. Smith has played with everybody, man. Like, let's hear some stories. And he like a lot of musicians, they're good storytellers. He's just kind of living it. He's just a gig guy. He's a real cat in that way. He's not quite so famous. He can just kind of lean back and just not do anything. He's got to kind of take. It's almost like he's in a wedding band or a cruise band. But anyway, I digress again. G.E. Smith said that he thought Miley Cyrus should go all the way as far as like career. He thought she was going to be, and I've heard a lot of people say things to that effect, that they thought Miley Cyrus had like the talent. And I definitely think she has like the chops as far as like, I mean, she's been singing and she's been bred to be an entertainer since she was a child. She's literally been in TV and movies since she was a fucking like 2 or 3 years old or something. And singing, and I mean, once they get you at that age, you're just famous for our whole lives. People our age, we just have such affection for the stuff of our childhood that. And, I mean, Miley Cyrus was a little bit younger than me. That was kind of more my brother's age, my little brother. He was born in 1996, or is that Gen Z, or I don't know. Is Miley Cyrus Gen Z? She seems, to be honest, when fucking Parties in the USA came out, I liked it. I wasn't like, oh, this shit sucks. I hate Miley Cyrus. I mean, definitely what she was doing was like, ostentatious and sort of like Lady Gaga, where it was like that era was just, she kind of pushed it even further where it was just about crossing boundaries and doing outrageous stuff. And to get back to the main theme and the main part of the discussion, Billy Ray Cyrus, it seemed like a lot of her career was just motivated to piss off Billy Ray Cyrus. It was like, Jesus Christ, what's she doing now? She's on the Grammy Awards and she's got, I don't know. We all saw it. We lived through it. But that made people respect her more, and her fans, I think there's a credibility and like I said, a substantiality to Miley Cyrus. Like, she knew what she was doing. It wasn't purely just some provocative. I mean, I think she knew that, unlike maybe somebody like Britney, who kind of was victimized by the machine and the publicity, I think Miley Cyrus kind of was aware of the fame that she was riding and sort of used it in an interesting way. I mean, she acted out and she kind of took charge of the narrative by being outrageous. Shia LaBeouf maybe is kind of a similar, he was like a Disney, and rather than just kind of get washed out as a child star, he became this kind of like, well, I don't know, acting out his demons and things became sort of like his career, doing these really kind of like stunt or living the part, just intense kind of movies, all these Lars von Trier movies and shit, getting all these tattoos and but at the same time being a Disney and being a mega plex kind of star. I mean, child stars, look, I mean, how many of them don't make it, obviously. So, like, the last thing I saw Miley did, she fucking was on SNL when Elon Musk hosted. I think that really changed his life. I think he's, like, humiliated. Or, like, I don't know if he's emotional enough to understand, to actually be humiliated, but I think he, like, understands that he needs to be. Like he's kind of tanking a lot of his crypto thing. And I don't know, his haircut, I saw, but anyway, Miley Cyrus was the fucking musical guest. There you go. I mean, she's totally like an emoji. She's completely like web culture. She's completely, and she's smart. I mean, she seems to me like she's able to just live her life, as far as I can tell, in California, in Glendale. I heard, stories or this or that about Miley Cyrus going to the mall. She's, even though she's really famous, she's lived in LA her whole life, and like she's been around entertainment her whole life. And also, I don't know, the fact that they're from Tennessee and shit, I think does give them like a little bit more of a I mean, that's probably one reason why they're such good musicians. The fact they're from rural Tennessee and came up in the church and stuff. I mean, Miley Cyrus has real pipes. I think that's why she has staying power. So on SNL, what did she sing? Cranberry Zombie. I saw her singing Zombie. And she just goes at it, I mean, she's got the pipes. Like, everything she sings is going to sound good. She's just like a theater kid in that regard. And, I mean, she's super stylish. She's super, like, smart about, she was probably one of the first entertainers that dressed like LMFAO or something, just like kind of crazy color schemes, and just like you could tell it was very internet, non sequitur, just outrageous, super visual, like Zoolander or something almost, extremes of fashion. And I definitely think she smokes tons of weed, and I think that's another reason why she's on fucking SNL. She's like, she probably smoked weed with fucking Elon Musk beforehand. She's like, she feels it. I don't know. I read her Wikipedia and shit. Her mom, I guess, is a huge pothead. Billy Ray Cyrus, I guess, had 2 kids at the same time, and he chose this woman, and this woman's kind of like his wife, and Miley is, obviously that's the family. I'm not sure what happened with the other woman, but Miley Cyrus's mom is her manager, and I guess she's like a super pothead, a super pot advocate. And so I mean, they're from California, so she's thinking on that kind of level. She's thinking with those kind of vibes. She's feeling the music, and I'm not sure that. I'm not sure what Billy Ray Cyrus's stance on the matter is. My impression is he's just like, oh my god, I can't believe my daughter is like doing all this shit on television. But I haven't really followed her music that closely. Like I said, I loved Parties in the USA when it came out. I was all about it because I was thinking about moving to LA at the time. So it sounded like the story of what my life might be. I don't know. My life has been shallow and pathetic like that. Parties in the USA. It was seminal, autobiographical, and but I don't know. I haven't. Wrecking Ball is that she's got some huge songs. I know that, and she continues to be relevant. She continues to be, but so who would have expected? This is another thing that brings Billy Ray Cyrus. He still remains part. He's a household name. He's still in our lives. He's still and the thing that really surprised and delighted me and perhaps you and probably the whole culture, of course. What was it? 2018 or 2019? Lil Nas X, Old Town Road. I thought it was completely genius. It was a total stroke of genius to fucking cast Billy Ray Cyrus as like the old weathered cowboy figure, like he's fucking Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven or something. Like he's riding back into town and his hair is super, it's like a mullet, but it's like super shampooed and conditioned and just like super like silky and kind of post, I don't know, Evanescence. He looks like he's I mean, he's got his like his process and his he went to the hairdresser. But he's a cowboy, and he's the grizzled old, but it's kind of amazing because it's him, and it's kind of true. That's where our culture's at. So it's campy, I would say, I guess. Is that a campy gesture? Nobody seems to know what camp is anymore. Maybe because our culture, like, transcended camp. I think internet turns the camp meter up a lot, maybe. Like vintage ironic stuff, that seemed campy, right? That was my generation, late 2000s. Like flannel and trucker hats. Is that campy? When I think of camp, I think of like 50s, like Christmas album, Paul Lynde or something, or Jim Neighbors. Is that camp? Andy Williams, is that campy? Is Broadway, is that campy? Maybe Broadway's not camp. Pee-wee is camp, right? Like John Waters is camp. Crybaby. But nobody seems to know how to do. I mean, Lady Gaga is camp. See, that's what I mean. It's like wearing a meat dress has a different, like the culture, the joke has turned like rancid. It's not, I mean, what's camp? This was a problem people had at the fucking, what is that, Met Ball or whatever the hell it is? That uber elite status. Let them eat cake. Fucking, it's just apathetic how in your face exclusive that is. And nobody knew what the fuck camp was. But I think Billy Ray Cyrus doing Old Town Road, I think that's camp, right? Lil Nas X seems like the master of like, I think part of being a celebrity now, or at least a certain kind of celebrity, a large percentage celebrity, like an internet celebrity, is about like learning, knowing how to like post stuff correctly. And like the fact that Billy Ray Cyrus is in the fucking video is like this, it's just like a gag. It's almost like a sight gag or something. Like that they got this guy. It ties it through this whole lineage of Achy Breaky Heart and all of it. I just think it's such a great idea. But here's what I heard, and this was kind of amazing to me, was in the Wikipedia it said the song was disqualified from the charts because they said it was like not country or something. Something like that. It was number one on the country chart for like a week, and then they disqualified it because they said it wasn't country or something. I'd have to look exactly. And then, so I guess that the one with, I didn't really know this, but the one with Billy Ray Cyrus is like a remix. And the reason they got Billy Ray Cyrus, or one of the reasons, was so it would qualify for the country music chart. And so after they put Billy Ray Cyrus on the fucking song, then they let it qualify for that, and it was like number one for like, 18 weeks or something. To me, that's outrageously racist. To me, that's not any different than having like that thing about Jerry Wexler, and before the term R&B, rhythm and blues, Jerry Wexler coined the term rhythm and blues in the late 40s. Before that, the category was called race records. Like, it was a separate category from the country chart, from the pop chart. The race records, meaning the records recorded by black artists, they didn't want it on the country chart, or they didn't want it on this chart or that. To me, I don't know. I just couldn't believe they're still doing that in 2018, 2019, wherever that song came out. And then, okay, we put Billy Ray Cyrus on the fucking song. So now white people can like it. I don't know. I couldn't believe that in this day and age. Like, oh, we got to take that off. That's not country. That's rap music. That's, it's like. But anyway, that's that's the main reason why I got on, was because I wanted to talk about Old Town Road, and just like. It was a great song. It was like one of those things at the center of the culture, like the Macarena or Umbrella, Ella, Ella, Ella. That song was everywhere. We Found Love in a Hopeless Place. That song was everywhere when it came out in New York. That's one of the great things about New York, is like you're always hearing radios from cars, or just in whatever public spaces you're in bars, at the Rite Aid, at the dollar store. They're always playing music. And so, like, the song of the summer kind of manifests that. When I first moved here, of course, that Alicia Keys, Jay-Z song had just come out. Now you're in New York. So they were playing it all the fucking time, everywhere you went. Cars passing by, you'd hear Alicia Keys, New York. And it was awesome, like, obviously 2008, 2009, 2010, like that era is indelibly marked by this song, but Old Town Road, I don't know. It was a beautiful collaboration, a beautiful meld. Country and hip hop do go together surprisingly well. There's been a lot of crossovers with that in the last few years. That's the thing that about music, is it blends. Like, it becomes new genres. It becomes interesting when you put two things together that seem like they're from different places and they're kind of developed differently. You get people to collaborate, and it creates a new blend, creates a new style. I mean, that's what rock and roll is. I mean, one of the things about rock and roll that I did want to mention, everybody talks about, well, the line, the famous line being, the blues had a baby and they named it rock and roll. And the idea being that rock and roll is just sort of like a sped up version of blues, which, of course, definitely there's definitely aspects of that, particularly with like, Chuck Berry or well, I don't know, but it is just as much a version, and in fact, a lot of the blend, I don't know, it's a sped up version of country music in a lot of ways. That's what I hear people, I never really hear people say that, but like a lot of the guitar stuff that I know that's like rock and roll guitar stuff, it's just, it's country scales and licks. It's just they play it a lot slower. the chord changes in country music. It kind of goes through the chords in a way. Blues is a cyclical, repetitive. It typically, the chord structures are not typically what is remarkable. It's like I said, it's cyclical. It's a 12 bar blues. It's a repeating pattern, and it has these kind of walk downs and turnovers or whatever, turnarounds. Country music will have three chords, but the way it kind of goes between them, it's not necessarily a repetitive cyclical pattern that's 12 bar turnaround thing. It's like it'll go from the 1 to the 4, and then maybe back to the 1, and then maybe up to the 5, and then back to the 1, and then back to the, and then maybe for the chorus it'll go down to the 5 and then go back to the 1. Like blues, you don't typically have a chorus, really. You might have like a refrain or something. That's not to like, obviously like blues, particularly in like 60s rock and roll and electric guitar type of things, there's definitely a whole. But I was surprised. I'm surprised at how neglected country music is amongst musicians, frankly. Like, there's a lot of people that play bluegrass, and there's a lot of people that play rhythm guitar, and there's a lot of people, especially, obviously where I come from, who play blues. There's a lot of white people who play blues, and good for them. It's because of the 60s. It's because of the Rolling Stones and all of the British band, coming out of the 60s, 70s, the coolest thing you could be was like a fucking blues electric guitar player. So they don't even know country music, to be honest. They've never even listened to a lot of it. And especially with a band like the Rolling Stones or Bob, for instance, but even Elvis, there's just as much country music in the equation. And in fact, the style is this kind of like sped up, hopped up country style. Now, I don't know exactly what the fucking origins of country music are in this country. Like, is that completely ripped off from African styles and from black people? That's possible. I'm not sure how far back it goes. Did white people learn country music from black people in the early 1900s and then just kind of developed and became this Nashville Grand Ole Opry thing? I'm not sure, but I know the banjo is an African instrument. The banjo is from West Africa. And that's kind of a bluegrass. I think to some degree, this is just my uninformed, uneducated expertise. I think to some degree, country music comes from like English and maybe perhaps European styles, hill ballads or whatever, like sort of folk music, right? To some degree, Barbara Allen or, Tom of Bedlam, or I think to some degree, country music is probably like an Americanized, flattened out, influenced by the landscape, influenced by the modes of transportation. Country music sounds like trains. And then in the 50s, it starts to sound more like cars. It starts to sound more atomic. Jerry Lee Lewis, right? Elvis did Now and Then There's a Fool Such as I. He did a lot of Hank Snow songs. There's a whole album of Elvis. I mean, there's a lot of interchange between all of it. And if you slow down rock and roll, it can be very, so I don't know. That has to do with fucking Billy Ray Cyrus, I guess, too. Him being country. Well, particularly, like I said, I'm not exactly sure the real origins of it. Maybe I shouldn't be talking about it, I guess. But if you don't want to be appropriative, you know, it's also just like, I don't know, country. I know as a kid, right? Like the cliche was, "Oh, I don't like country. It's impossible to listen to." The cliches, "Oh, my truck, my wife, my dog," whatever it is. You know, the cliches about which there's a lot more depth to it. It's a lot more of a mature music in a lot of ways than rock and roll can be. Rock and roll having to be fast and having to be hard, and rock and roll definitely lyrically, I feel like in a lot of instances didn't really do what it could have done. Country music is almost always lyrically really well crafted, and it's the sense of it being it's sort of more from the common soil. That was one thing that I thought was interesting. Bob mentioned on Theme Time Radio Hour was there was a guy, I forget what song he had written, but it was super catchy. He wrote some song during World War II, Stars and Stripes. I don't remember. Not Stars and Stripes Forever, but something like that. And it became, that was right around when they invented the Billboard charts. They didn't have charts where they kept track of sales like ranked before, I don't think, like the late 30s, early 40s. So there were records before that sold shitloads of copies, but we're not exactly sure how many because it wasn't quite as tabulated. So, but anyway, this guy, his song started to sell a bunch of copies, and he said, please stop, he asked radio stations, he asked the record company, like, please stop playing it. I don't want to sell any more copies, because he thought that he thought it needed to be played by a son of the soil. It shouldn't be something that was like heard on a record. He thought a common people should have to like play it themselves, like through sheet music or something. I thought that was kind of an interesting requirement. The idea that something has value because it comes from a common person from the middle land or something, rather than, oh, they have X, Y, or Z credential, or they sold this many copies, or they're some super generation defining artist. I don't know. When and how the common people have voice and sort of formulate in the culture has been kind of a theme, I'd say, through the pandemic, certainly through, obviously the last president, but even studying poets from the middle part of America, Vachel Lindsay, and how they did it, how they went into the interior, I don't know, and how it felt like there maybe was more life, or, like I'm reading this book talking about these two guys were from Davenport, Iowa, and they were like, they had read, it was about Edna St. Vincent Millay, and these two guys had read Edna St. Vincent Millay's poem in some poetry magazine, some small poetry magazine in Davenport, Iowa, and they started corresponding with her because they read her poem in this magazine when they lived in Davenport. This was like in 10s or whatever. To me, that's crazy that, or I think Bix Beiderbecke is from Davenport, Iowa, Quad City area. I don't know. It feels like there used to be more of a richness or more of a cosmopolitan or something vibe to the interior land Now the sense of it is some kind of flyover country or some kind of like zombified uh vapid. I mean, to some degree everybody's on the internet, so that's like the common voice, and that's how anybody can become famous, or anybody can come viral, or anybody can uh theoretically, like a hit song could come from anywhere, right? Maybe. Or people can make it through social media accounts or TikTok, or I mean Jake Paul, Logan Paul, they're from Cleveland. So in a certain way the internet is a folk art. Maybe that's why tacky fucking Cracker Barrel. Jack and I were talking about Cracker Barrel. Because we were trying to think of all the breakfast places. Because in Ohio, there's a place called Bob Evans, which I'm not sure where else they have Bob Evans, if they have Bob Evans in Indiana even. Do they have Bob Evans in Kentucky? Or is Bob Evans just like... When I was in high school, all the kids would talk about Bob Evans Farm. There was some farm that Bob Evans owned. I guess it was in southern Ohio or something. And you could go out there. They had a restaurant there I think you could eat. And like... That's where they made all the food and shit. That's where they had all the animals, where they made the sausage and made the fucking eggs and whatever. So you could go to Bob Evans Farm. And that's where they supplied all the restaurants from, I suppose, from Bob Evans Farm. But, you know, Bob Evans was like... It looked like, I guess, a barn, or it had kind of a red, like, the branding... It was like, because it was a total facsimile. It was built on a highway or something. It was like, or a freeway even, not even a highway. It was completely like a parking lot, off-ramp, traffic light. What's that, like, quad blossom, whatever the fuck that is. The off-ramps of like the freeway, that overhead kind of pattern, whatever that's called. Bob Evans is completely like, that's not they built that building probably for super cheap, and it's a Bob Evans building. It's not like some fucking barn or something it's like plastic probably. It's built to throw up real fast, and it's completely, I mean, it's surrounded by a parking lot. You can't walk there. It's not good for anything else except being a Bob Evans. It's completely a suburban car fucking logistic. So anyway, we would go to Bob Evans all the fucking time. It's one of these like breakfast all the time places, kinda. Like you can get, and that's kind of what they're known for, I suppose. Like eggs, hash browns, sausage links. I loved sausage links as a kid. Pancakes, syrup. So it was like, it was like a corporate restaurant, more or less, even though their brand was like down on the farm. That was their fucking slogan. Down on the farm. Bob Evans, down on the farm. So it was like a red barn outside with like fucking like white, trim kind of railing in front. And then the right where you go in, it wasn't like a gift shop. But they sold a little bit of shit. I think they had maybe cards and like candy and shit. It was somewhere like, have you ever been to TJ's? Bob Evans like a high-end TJ's. TJ's is just a scum fuck place of the universe for some reason. I don't know how that happened. We would always go to TJ's as kids. But Bob Evans is almost like an Applebee's or something. Or a Max and Irma's, or a fucking Carrabba's Italian Grill, or whatever the fuck that... Marconi, Fuddruckers, they're all basically the same fucking restaurant. They're corporate, they're like mall off-ramp, like I said. But Bob Evans, I think it was only in Ohio. It may have even only been in central Ohio. So they had that iconic sign, fucking, the red barn, and then the yellow font, Bob Evans, like McDonald's kind of. I guess that says breakfast, that says sunlight, eggs, orange juice, haystacks. It's a kind of place that old people like to go and sit and have breakfast. Sit at I think they have a counter, probably coffee, read the paper. I had a friend who was like a hostess there. Uh, we would go a lot. There was a Bob Evans right by my dad's house on Hamilton Road. And the thing I would typically get, like they had a dinner thing. It was almost like a Thanksgiving. You could get it all year round. It was like a thin sliced turkey with gravy, stuffing, like literal stuffing. I'd get stuffing in July or whatever. Most people only get stuffing once a year. That's not what Bob Evans. Bob Evans will offer you stuffing. I think that was there another thing. I think it was mashed potatoes with gravy, turkey, and stuffing. That's what I would get at Bob Evans typically. Lord knows what the fuck is even in that, how many calories that is. I'm sure the gravy has got gluten in it. I haven't been in a Bob Evans in a while. It doesn't seem like their brand is quite as strong as it was. I mean, now that people are sort of on more of a health food type thing, I'm not sure if Bob Evans, to some degree it was like that. It's just amazing how much like food blindness and lack of awareness there was about food from like the 50s until about, I don't know, 10 years ago even. Kind of till maybe the internet and tech shit and Whole Foods and like basically I don't know how boomers did it. They smoked, they took pills, they ate fast food, they ate fucking Hamburger Helper, they used toxic cleaning products, they did hard drugs, they drank, they smoked cigarettes. I guess they were just having a great time, Didn't affect them at all. Me, I can't even eat. Like I had fucking Chinese food, those boneless ribs with like the kind of thick red jelly kind of like sauce on them. Oh, they're delicious. But I think there's gluten in that sauce. There has to be. And it fucked me up. Like the whole next day I felt like I was hungover. I had a headache and I was tired. It was just like, I can't even eat that. Like Bob Evans. I'm sure they have salads and shit like that. So we were talking about breakfast places because that was like, we didn't really have, like, it's kind of like Denny's. Bob Evans is like country, though. Like, it's kind of, that's kind of like the brand, I would say. It's like I said, it's kind of like a farm. You could totally picture, like, pigs and cows and shit. Although they don't include that explicitly. But we were also talking about Cracker Barrel. Maybe Cracker Barrel is more of like a prevalent mass kind of hillbilly. Or, Denny's is kind of like, Denny's is more like fast food. Denny's always feels like the Jetsons or something to me. Like Denny's is more of kind of like a out west kind of space age diner. Even though it's still kind of country and like, it's breakfast. And I don't know, most people's idea of breakfast is just so ludicrous. It's sausage links, bacon, eggs, maybe an omelet. Fried eggs, cheese, fried potatoes of one kind or another. Just calories, sugar, carbs, heart-stopping red meat, vitamin C, orange juice, but coffee probably too, sugar, cream. Oh, it's great. I love breakfast. I've always loved breakfast. It's like having having fucking, there's so many breakfast foods that are like dessert, like cereal. Jesus Christ. I can't believe they fed an entire generation just cereal. Cereal was the only thing I knew how to make, basically, until I was about 25 years old. Like, they had me thinking that Alphabets or Lucky Charms was like a reasonable food. Milk, sugar, like cornmeal. That's all that's in that. And a bunch of fucking preservatives and God knows what. Artificial coloring. Artificial flavoring. Once you become aware, your body starts to pay the price. So, just stay toxic. Don't worry about it. Stay totally ignorant. Just keep getting fucked up. Keep smoking. Keep eating bad food. uh, then there were Shoney's. I saw fucking on my hillbilly TV channel. I'm watching the country music television, because I got it. It's one of the few stations I have somehow in New York City is a country music station. And I'm watching it. It's some fucking talk show from, like, I don't even know, the late 80s, early 90s. This guy, Carl Jackson. I never heard of him. He's kind of like a sideman. They said he played with Glenn Campbell. He learned a lot from Glenn. And I think he played with Emily Harris, maybe. And he was playing his solo shit. And it was like from the Nashville network. It looked like that. And then there was an ad brought to you by Shoney's. Shoney's was like the fucking... It's sort of like Big Boy. Or, like I said, dessert for breakfast. Like waffles. They have like it said all you care to eat. Buffet. Breakfast buffet. The all you care to eat. I'm not sure how good of a fucking... tagline that is. That's all I care to eat of this. That's enough. No more. That's all I care to eat. Oh, this Shoney's. I think one time we went to Shoney's for Thanksgiving when I was in Florida. It's like a Panama City type place. It's like a Popeye's chicken type. It's not like Waffle House is the gold standard. Waffle House is the gold standard of just it's a beautiful thing. I mean, as an institution, as part of our public infrastructure, like Waffle House, God bless them. Like, thank God they're there. They really make this country. They're the backbone of America, to be honest. Waffle House, thank God. 24/7, 365. They never fucking close. Even during the pandemic, a lot of them stayed open. And they're iconic. Talk about branding. Yellow, yellow, yellow and brown, just like their food. Hash browns and waffles. The big 79-cent big fuckers. I mean, good God. You can't eat anything that you order. It's all the portions are so big. You order like a waffle, you eat a quarter of it. You're like, okay, that's enough waffle. I can't stand any more waffle. And yet here I have fucking I have like a pizza, basically. That's a waffle. I mean, I love the goddamn Waffle House. The interior is phenomenal. Those fucking, the diner counter, the booths, the windows. It's like Nighthawks. It's like a trucker Nighthawks. God bless them. God bless them. Put them everywhere. Put them everywhere. Put them everywhere. Put them everywhere. Does New York have a Waffle House? I think there's definitely one on campus at OSU. But it kind of has to be a standalone building. It's almost like a castle, to be honest. Waffle House is like... So they're... And then in the South, in Panama City Beach, they have these kind of like Waffle House knockoffs that are like clearly Waffle House buildings, but they've turned into like coffee kettle, waffle kettle... Bunch of weird shit. And then out west, I mean, breakfast is a whole way. It's a way of but it's all diners there. It's all these really classic, almost like David Lynchian, like Twin Peaks. They're cool. Like LA, there's so many. You'd think LA would not be. There's so many donut fucking shops and so many breakfast. There's so many Denny's. And not only is there Denny's, but there's all these independent diners. Fucking Los Feliz Golf Course is you get breakfast. You get eggs, waffles, pancakes, whatever. Orange juice, coffee, cup of coffee. There's tons of places you can go have a cup of coffee. I love that. I think it's amazing. Out west, there's just so many fucking pull-in breakfast kind of places. It's a leisurely meal if you're lucky, I suppose. It feels kind of like the West. If you're a fucking cowboy or something, I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to have a, breakfast. Like the Bob Evans thing, it feels associated with the farm. It feels associated with cowboys or some shit. Like, I'm on a cow. I need a fucking, bacon, eggs, orange juice, toast, all that shit. I need a big breakfast because I got to go out and fucking herd cattle or some shit. I got a hard day down on the farm. At my job, all Americans were taught to think of ourselves as like, we work hard, we suffer, because that's the American way. We work our fucking asses off. We go to Bob Evans to fuel up. Yeah, my brother and I were talking about breakfast places. Cracker Barrel. So Cracker Barrel, like half the fucking... And this is, like, I would say Cracker Barrel, because I was thinking to think of the national equivalent of Bob Evans. I guess one reason why Bob Evans isn't national is probably because they have that farm and they can't get their food everywhere. They seem kind of like Jimmy Dean sausage or something. Like Bob Evans seems like a similar person. I always confuse the two. And who the fuck is Jimmy Dean anyway? This is like a name that just like a bunch of people, like James Dean technically is Jimmy Dean. It's not James Dean sausage. And then Jimmy Dean is some kind of like country personality, but I have no fucking clue who he is. Jimmy Dean, is he like Roy Rogers or Will Rogers or these other fucking people that we don't know who they are anymore? Who the fuck is Jimmy Dean? I think he's in a James Bond movie. There's a guy named Jimmy Dean, right? Or there's some kind of Vegas connection with Jimmy Dean. Whatever the Bond movie is in Vegas. But Bob Evans and Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel is like a theme park of like a log cabin. It just goes berserk. They've got like fucking all these rocking chairs on the front, and their food is cheap. And I'd say it's, I don't know if it's better or worse than TJ's. TJ's is like, it's kind of maybe the bottom of the barrel, I'd say. I don't know. It's Waffle House. I would rather personally eat in a Waffle House than a TJ's. With the Waffle House, at least I can see where they're making the food. And it, like, I don't know. There's something about, like, the cleanliness, the orderliness, the systematic. TJ's, who knows what the fuck is going on in that kitchen. I don't know. There was a TJ's near his house when he lived in the south side of the South End on Parsons. And we would go there. It was all right. I think I had some kind of turkey stuffing thing. We used to go to TJ's when we were little kids. Our dad would always take us to TJ's. There was one on 33 near Grandview Avenue. And I remember them giving us crayons and drawing. He taught us how to color on the placemats at TJ's. And I remember throwing up on the table at TJ's, actually. I barfed on the table. Probably from eating at TJ's. I think that was at the TJ's on West Broad. I'm sure I'm not the first. I'm not the first. I'm not the last who barfed on the table at TJ's. But, in high school, sort of before TJ's went away, and sort of like the beginning years, maybe the end of high school, beginning years of college, the TJ's was sort of notorious because it was open all night, and supposedly a lot of gay men would go to TJ's after the bar, and you could kind of like, I don't know, they'd just be hanging out or whatever, maybe you could pick somebody up at TJ's at 2 or 3 a.m. in the bathroom or something in the early 2000s. And then TJ's went out of business, and it became like a Mexican restaurant that was really good, and we'd go there and eat. But Cracker Barrel, like half the fucking store is like this weird, like I said, like theme park gift shop where they sell like that little fucking game that's like made out of wood. They're all just kind of like knickknacks and tchotchkes. They sell that little game that's like made out of like fucking, I guess it's the idea being it's like hand carved in the United States maybe. It's like a triangle and it's got all these like fucking golf tees in it, and it's about like hopping the golf tees. They sell shit like that in like the Cracker Barrel gift shop. I don't know who the fuck. I mean, to be honest, I only have eaten a Cracker Barrel once or twice. My parents really never took us to Cracker Barrel at all. that was I don't remember. I think maybe I went with Jack or something. But I don't know. Maybe they're like the most national. Denny's, I suppose, would be the national breakfast diner. But they don't have Denny's in Columbus, really. There's a few in kind of perimeter of Central Ohio area, but there's not there's not really Denny's in. I'm not sure why. It's just one of those peculiar mysteries. So I've also been reading this fucking book. I ordered this yesterday. I suppose I don't know. I should talk about this for a second. This is what I've been doing basically for the last 2 days, just kind of reading this really fast because it's one of those things. It's like, okay, so it's called Republic of Dreams. Let me. I'm gonna zoom in maybe a little bit, change the angle up a little bit. Okay. How's that? It's pretty good. I gotta get that New York production value. So, Republic of Dreams, Greenwich Village, The American Bohemia, 1910 to 1960, by Roz Wetstein. Wetstein. Something to that effect. And I've seen this book, I think, but okay, so I ordered off the internet. So I've never, I didn't really see it in person. I didn't know. I paid $4 for it, somewhere around that, which is as cheap as they get on the website I use. These are the kind of books that I would hope to either get at a library and just read them, because I don't really like buying nonfiction stuff. If I can just read it, I don't really need to own it. Or a dollar rack. I would love to have found this book like on a dollar rack somewhere to just like buy. I can read it and then just get rid of it. But anyway, I don't know. This has been my main subject of interest and exploration recently. Obviously, I've been talking about it on this a lot and in my writing. This exploration of Greenwich Village, kind of bohemian life and those characters, and just kind of learning. That's what I've been doing over the past few years just in general. Is everywhere I go, I get into the poets of that place and try to learn about the history and try to learn about the work and see how I can meld with the environment and maybe learn technique things, but also commune with the spirits, commune with the ghosts and try and I don't know, get them to know, I don't know, just have a relationship. Honor them, recognize them. And also just see how you are like them, see how you relate to them. The connections can be amazing. This is my kind of apprenticeship with the spirits. I don't know. This is what I've been doing for the past few years. When I lived in Burnett Mayer childhood home neighborhood, or going to L.A., Venice, going to San Francisco, even in Columbus or whatever. So I saw this book and I was able to see a Google preview of it, and it just looked like there was just too much stuff in it that I was interested in learning about. It just looked like it was too kind of about what I'm like. Okay, chapter William Carlos Williams, The Little Magazines and the Poetry Wars. Chapter on Maxwell Bodenheim, poems 25 cents each. Chapter on E. Cummings, The Village's Sanctuary. Chapter on Delmore Schwartz. Chapter on Jackson Pollock and the Abstract Expressionists in the Village. Chapter on Hart Crane. Chapter on Joe Gould. Chapter on Juana Barnes. Etc., etc. And so, I don't know, just this has been my kind of obsession recently. This has been my kind of project, walking around the village, like I said, communing with the spirits and just learning about the history. Learning, because to be honest, I don't know that much. Most of the poetry activity that I've been a part of has been in the East Village, and they are vastly different kind of environments in a weird way, considering how close they are and how similar the field of activity is. As far as like music, theater, poetry, both communities have vibrant, important, and aesthetically kind of differing. The West Village, you could say it's older. You might say it kind of stops maybe around like the 80s or something. It's kind of interesting to think about why. Why is there not any kind of scene on the West Village? Obviously we know why, because it's incredibly expensive and no artist can afford to live there, but also being amongst it, you do start to see the community, and there are some people that have lived there for a long time and are not just super rich people. It's still a community, it's still a local place. So you have working class, but you have this whole history of whether it's Cafe Chino or even West Beth Labyrinth Theater Company. Obviously further back, Eugene O'Neill Provincetown Playhouse. You have this whole history of avant-garde, you would say, lifestyle and work that's much different than the East Villages, which you could describe in a similar way. The poetry of the East Village, the poetry, the theater, the avant-garde performance art, the art galleries, the bohemia. It's perhaps different times. East Village being the cheap bohemia of, let's say, 60s, 70s, 80s. West Village maybe being that of the, 10s, 20s, 30s, something like that. That's kind of, that history further back. I don't necessarily hear people in the East Village romanticize or connect themselves that much with this side of town, to be honest. The lineages that people feel like connected to, and not necessarily sentimental about, but nostalgize, wax nostalgic over it, like Paul Blackburn or even Joel Oppenheimer. Or of course, all of the Poetry Project, all of you don't hear them refer to these West Village figures really. Well, that was one thing that was interesting living with one of my former roommates. He went to New School, and I'm into language poetry and quote unquote avant-garde kind of typographical poetics type stuff. And one of the first day I was in there, he asked me about E.E. Cummings, and I'm just like, he's not somebody that's discussed, or as far as I know, even really taken seriously by most of the people that I've read and studied over the past 5 years or so. The quote unquote New York School or whatever. As far as I can tell, I don't know. E.E. Cummings was never, like I said, considering it's just a few blocks away, and there could be probably maybe some kind of I don't know. Obviously Carlos Williams is very acknowledged and discussed, and even Hart Crane is very acknowledged and discussed, but it's never really like sentimentally it's interesting that you don't hear the West Village or the East Village poets necessarily talk about West Village. In the sonnets, Ted Berrigan says Perry Street. I think I was thinking I was someplace like Perry Street, so that's West Village. But 2nd Avenue. So this book I basically bought, the Frank O'Hara poem is Second Avenue. This book I basically bought to just sort of learn. It's a Lives of the Poets. It's a nonfiction. So I thought it'd just be kind of an easy read, and like it would give me a lot of information about these people. I'm not necessarily reading it because it's some challenging literary thing. I'm really just trying to like learn. And if I can just go through it fast and it's an easy read, but if it has smart things to say, but I gotta say, I mean, the guy, I don't really like his writing style very much. He does this thing, and I don't really know why. To be honest, I'm just kind of reading the parts that I want to read. The book is like 500-600 pages or something. Like, it covers a lot. But I just thought I'd just read about the people I want to learn about and jump around that way, rather than, okay, I got to start at the beginning, and, I got too much shit to read. So, I'm not exactly sure why, but for some reason, he decides to use the names of the people that are not really the names that they're famous for, and a lot of them are weird. Like the chapter where he's talking about Edna St. Vincent Millay and Edmund Wilson, for instance, he refers to Edna St. Vincent Millay as Vincent, who I guess what her friends and people who are close to her called her, was Vincent. Okay. But then he refers to Edmund Wilson as Bunny through the whole fucking chapter, which I guess was his nickname. So the whole fucking chapter is like Vincent and Bunny. And so it's like, and the whole book is like this. So like E.E. Cummings he refers to as Estlin, which is his first name. Eugene he calls Gene. It's just like a weird stylistic choice that it's just like, it just kind of throws you, because every fucking character in the fucking book has got like a different goddamn name that he calls them by. And so it's like, and it's just, I don't know. It's just like, it's a lot of conjecture about, well, this person's side of this personality melded with this person's side of this personality, and that's why they got along, but then their marriage fizzled out because blah, blah, blah. It's just like, it's just not, the writing is not, I don't really see what to value in it. And it's kind of confusing. The points that are made are like not really necessary. I mean, I worry that like the author is interpreting too much, and I worry about their interpretation. I don't know if I really trust it, to be honest. I don't know how this writer, apparently they wrote for the Village Voice for like a long time. And they edited some plays, some volumes of plays and things that I've read off Broadway. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm just reading it for the fucking information, to get kind of like that's with any of these subjects, you have to kind of read a bunch of different books. You read, so like this is just another kind of take on this milieu that I'm studying, right? So the Maxwell Bodenheim book, My Life and Loves in Greenwich Village, that's one version. And that book is kind of plagued by similar problems, where like you kind of have to like get past the prejudices of the narrator to just like, you take the objective facts of the story and you just kind of get rid of like the stylistic stuff and like the stuff they try and push on you. This book is similar to that, where it's like, okay, I'm just trying to get like it's a somewhat there. It's basically, the structure of it is, it's like almost like a lot of short kind of novella length biographical sketches of a lot of these, and a lot of them are poets. So a lot of it is about lives of the poets and just seeing how they did it. So like, the Edna St. Vincent Millay section is like probably 50 or 60 pages or something. And it's just, her life was really interesting. I'm actually surprised. I feel like it would make a really good Netflix show, because it's very current in a way, and kind of cool and witchy. Like, it's very New York, but okay, so she was born in Maine, and I don't remember what happened to her dad, but her mom was kind of a single mom, I think. And they grew up kind of in this isolated rural circumstance, I think. And they basically spent their whole childhood just like, she's got two sisters, I guess, right? So it's three sisters. And they just basically spent their whole childhood basically doing like witchy fucking fun kid, make-believe shit, singing songs, writing plays, doing plays. Said she read all Shakespeare by the time she was 10 and read Milton and blah, blah, blah. Like they were like little bohemian artists, and that's one thing I try to tap into with my fucking drawings, for instance. Like I posted a fucking drawing on Instagram today, got 7 likes, not great. But I remember as a kid, I had this phone book, but it was blank. My mom got it for us, and it was like my drawing book. You just sit there and you just draw shit. Like, yeah, everybody should be doing this, And so, like, drawing, writing plays, putting on plays, writing poetry, singing songs, making videos, and just living kind of an enchanted. So they had this kind of like life, in the woods, alone, and they weren't around boys. So she wrote some poem when she was like young. I forget if she had gone to college yet. Renaissance or something, and it won some contest in New York, and because it was so good, and she became kind of famous because of this fucking poem. That's what's so crazy. Reading this all takes place kind of 1910s. Poetry was so much a part of people's lives. It's talking about, but people loved this fucking poem so much she became kind of famous, and like they kind of awaited her to come to New York. She was like going to be the sensation here. And she went to college at some all-women's college. And here's the other thing, is she had all these relationships in undergrad with women. There was no men in the college. And so she had all of her sexual experiences, basically, until she moved to New York, and all of her relationships were with women. So she had this kind of interesting life where even as an undergrad, she was like a star. Like they knew who she was in New York. She had won this contest. She'd won all this money. She'd kind of been to New York and like done readings and shit. And yet I think her college was upstate. I forget. It wasn't Smith, but I think it was something like that. Vassar. I think she went to Vassar, maybe. And then, so when she moved to New York, but she was like scandalous, she's just like her tone is super like modern in like the way she's kind of like flirty and sarcastic, but also like kind of witchy, and her work is kind of at an interesting point. I feel like a lot of the work at that time kind of gets lost because it's between the kind of older lexical patterns of like kind of romantic sonnets, iambic pentameter or verse meter, and modern kind of like cosmopolitan circumstances, living in a city. She's kind of like Dorothy Parker. There's aspects of it that have that kind of same kind of fatalistic sense of humor and kind of pithy modern girl type feel. And she was that, she was like this famous media sensation. So she moved to New York and like was a columnist for Vogue and Vanity Fair and was just very popular and very. So it said she, she was in all these plays at Province. She wrote a play that became kind of a sensation. That was like a verse kind of play, and she was in all these plays at Provincetown Playhouse. It said her and her sisters were just like, they enchanted the whole fucking village with their, beauty and kind of magic and shit. And so, I don't know, to me, this is like such a series. This is like such a fucking like Netflix series. It's insane. You could do the whole fucking story, So she comes to New York, and she's acting in all these fucking plays because she wants to like get famous, kind of. She wants to get on Broadway or like in movies or something. And she's kind of like the ingenue. She's like the it girl in a way of like, but like of like the downtown like Provincetown players at that time was sort of like the avant-garde, kind of cool, experimental. I think uh, it's just interesting how similar it is to now. And but I don't know, like poetry was more appreciated or something, where like this poet could get this kind of place in the culture. And so then, she really didn't live in the village that long, to be honest, considering how associated she is with it. And even now, like a lot of the tourist type things you hear, like that house, 75 and a half or whatever it is, Bedford, and then Cherry Lane Theater, like she didn't live in New York more than a few years, not even more than like 5 years hardly. And then she moved upstate, and I don't know, to some degree it seemed like she had this kind of ability where I don't know, she seems kind of like Miranda July or something, where just like she could just kind of do anything and it kind of worked, and like enchanted people, and like there was definitely some sense that she was just like a powerful kind of magic person in all these different kind of mediums and things. But her relationships with men, so in the village, she had this thing talks about this guy Arthur, these two guys, like I said, in Davenport, Iowa, who read her poem, that Renaissance poem, in this fucking poetry magazine when they lived in Davenport, Iowa, and corresponded with her. So then they met her in New York. This one guy, Floyd Dell, not really exactly sure what his story was. He was some kind of literary critic. I think he was a playwright with Provincetown. I think he like was a director, playwright, and he cast her and kind of fell in love with her. But it just so happened, I think, that he was also friends with the guy from Davenport, Iowa, and he was from Davenport, Iowa. And so the other guy was like some kind of general or something in the First World War, and she falls in love with him, and he's kind of like the love of her life. But they can't be together because he's married to some other woman and blah, blah. So it's like she kind of ends up fucking with this other guy and like torturing him his whole life. And she just kind of has all these... She's able to make anybody fall in love with her, basically. All these dumb literary guys, She's smart. She's a genius. She's a poet. She's a lot like people that I know. So I've lived it. I understand this story innately. I think that's kind of interesting and feminist too. There was some sense, I think, from this that she was the first kind of like free woman, bohemian kind of icon. It was revolutionary that she was able to write about the things she was able to write about, sex, or and just be kind of an independent woman in society. At that time, that was still new. Women really were not even allowed to go in public without their husbands or whatever. So and then she just kind of lived the rest of her life. I think she had kind of health problems and she had mental problems. And she met some guy and they kind of retired upstate, and basically she lived the rest of her life upstate. Kind of deteriorating, I guess, in a certain way. Because, I don't know, I mean, she had such a vibrant imagination, maybe, and personality that, I don't know, it can drive you to crack up, that kind of sensitivity and that kind of unique. Plus, she was like a media kind of sensation, too, I mean. I think she did public readings that were sort of like performances. She did kind of dramatic. But so that's basically what this book is. It's kind of little vignettes about the different life stories of these different people. The segment about Maxwell Bodenheim basically just rehashed his book, except with criticism by him. This writer is like critical of a lot of shit. He's very critical of avant-garde. He talks shit about I forget who, somebody's avant-garde writing, and just kind of like makes broad statements about avant-garde stuff in general. But I don't know. It's worth reading just to even get the story of how the fact that it's even a biography of poets, and it tells you kind of how they did it, how the world was for them, how they existed, how they wrote. They found each other. They talked all night about poetry. These were their friends. These people mattered to them because they knew about this thing and they cared about this thing and they lived passionately. They burned the candle at both ends. Maybe I'll sit down for the grand finale, or I don't really. Is there anything else to talk about? Jesus Christ. Maybe I'd like to read some more. Maybe I'll knock off early. Oops. Yeah. Well, shit. I don't know. I like talking about poetry, but does anybody know or care? I mean, nobody watches my show anyway, so I don't even know why I try as hard as I do. Or worry about it. I mean, is there anything else I need to talk about? Oh, I wanted to check my phone real fast to just see. I think I got some Hinge messages, maybe. I don't know. No, I'm not getting a lot of returns. I'm getting a lot of new likes, and then my messages are kind of going nowhere. I just don't want to try. All this dating stuff, like, it's just, especially with online dating, it's like so much fucking effort. No new likes. Fucking assholes. I just don't get why people don't like it. This is really a cool drawing. They're really dumb as fuck. Unsupportive. It's because they think that I'm being arrogant, and I'm like, oh, look how good I am. Look at my drawing. Isn't it special? Like it. And yet, so I'm asking for validation without demonstrating any kind of like technical achievement. Like, this is just something I drew real fast. Doesn't indicate that I'm like super talented or adept or anything. It's just asking for ego stroking. So that's why I only got 7 likes. I don't know. This is what you struggle with every day. How's my hairline doing? I don't even want to know. I don't even fucking want to know. Yeah, with the dating thing, it's just like, God. I'm kind of just tired of it. I'm just like exhausted. It's a bad place to be because I feel so like such a bad desire. Like I really want to meet somebody, you know. But it's just god damn. You can't get away with just like firing off messages in response. Like that's what I haven't been. I mean, I try to be slightly clever, but I also try to just like I'm like I'm hitting it back, then you hit it back to me, and it's like in order for it to really work with, I have to spend a lot of time on the messages, and I have to do it perfectly, and I have to just craft it absolutely perfectly, and it just takes a lot of time and effort, and I kind of have to set my sights on somebody. I have to be like, okay, this girl I want to go on a date with, I am going to really focus on this and put a lot of work into it. And it is work. It will take a whole fucking day to set some shit up. And that's just the beginning. So then you can you can be eliminated at any stage in the process. It's like being on some fucking game show or something. And you always fall off. You always lose. I don't even know. I don't even know how people have sex at this point, to be honest. It's just like so many things have not gone anywhere for me. So I'm just like apparently like this is impossible. What am I doing wrong? Like what I used to do is not working. It's just not I mean, most of the dates I went on, I had my huge beard, to be honest. That's what I was doing most of April, early May. And so I think I kind of punched myself out. I put so much effort into it at that time. And the reason why I wasn't getting anywhere is because I had a huge, disgusting beard. Among other things. I mean, I think I've just become more laissez-faire. And, certain things like working out, I've stopped doing, meditating, and I think those do show with when you're on a date with somebody. I think if you invest in yourself in those ways, and you have, New York is so hyper professional and so hyper disciplined. This is a problem I've had most of the last decade. I guess in a certain way that's just kind of denial about what New York is. It's just like I'm just at odds with a lot of people here because they're just psychotically motivated professionals, and they're perfect in a sort of job application and in a physical way. Like I am more of a slob. I'm more of a hippie. Not a slob, but like my values are a lot different. I'm a bohemian, of course. And so like just off the rip, I'm not some super tall dashing guy that they're going to like dismiss all that. I'm Here's what I will say is I think women, I don't get why they're not just attracted to men who are like well proportioned. Like my body is really nicely well proportioned. It looks nice. I think that's very sexy. I think the fact that I am like I don't feel small. I don't feel like short. If I was below like let's say 5'6", then I would feel like fucked about it. And it sucks. That sucks for guys. But I don't feel that way. I don't it's a long way between 5'8" and 6 feet tall, let me tell you. It's a huge it's an ocean of difference. But I don't feel bad about my height at all, other than the fact that women are not as attracted to me as they would be if I was 6 feet tall. I think that is so stupid. I think it's because of arrested development. I think our generation is incredibly infantilized because we were raised by teenagers. The boomers never grew up. They were teenagers their whole fucking lives. They still listen to teenage music. They were split demographically in the 50s into being teenagers, and they never grew up. They're sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That is the boomers. That's who the fuck they are. And so, consequently, we were raised by teenagers, so we're babies. We're totally infantilized by the media, by our phones, by screens, convenience culture, illusion of choice, of course, and just our maturity levels. Watching fucking superhero movies, playing video games, dressing like children. And so these women all want daddies. They all want tall men because they're babies. They remind them of their daddies. Oh, daddy. Daddy, pick me up, daddy. It's just like, get over it. I'm trying to deprogram the women with my show. That's why I harp on this. Because I do feel like if I argue about it enough, people will see it my way. Because this is how it was in high school. In high school, it wasn't like, wow, this guy's tall. He's hotter. Like, I feel like an attractive person. I feel, because I'm well proportioned. I do not know why women are just kind of like stunned. They're just gaga if a guy's tall. Oh my God, he's so tall. Wow. They can't help it, I guess. How the fuck did I start talking about this? I was talking about dating in New York, and just, I don't know. I've just had a lot of near misses, and I've just had some, I mean, it hasn't been horrible, but god damn. After the years and years and years of celibacy, monogamy, fidelity, and I mean, of course, like the pandemic, right? I mean, Jesus Christ, like, I'm going crazy, man. Well, and also, okay, so the relationship, or the thing that I got in this girl was like, she doesn't want to do anything physically, really. She's like very slow with that, and it's like, okay, I respect that, but it's not very lucky for me. I mean, I'm trying to get something happening. I need something to happen. It's been a long time. I thought everybody was feeling. That's the other reason why it's like frustrating, because it's the impression I get from just meme, stupid, media group think culture is like everybody is trying to get down. And so it feels like, oh, everybody's getting a cookie but me. This is something my dad, this was a metaphor he talks about a lot. And I think it has to do with FOMO culture. And my generation is, he talks about when he was a kid at kindergarten, like nap time, right? They give you a snack after nap time. And all the kids would like fight to get in line to like get the snack before anybody else. And he said that he saw that and he just thought, oh, I don't want to live that way. I don't want to be like the kid that's just trying to push everybody else out of the way to get my snack or whatever. And it's like that kind of feels like what's happening in New York. And with a lot of the fickleness of our generation and chasing fame, almost like chasing a golden ticket or something. It's like, oh, it's the pandemic's over. There's like this hedonistic gold rush that's going to happen. Fucking, we're going to get vaccinated. We're going to go to New York and we're going to fucking have the greatest sex of all time because nobody's ever been this fucking horny because, like, we've been in a pandemic and, oh my God, like, we're just going to go back to New York and we're just going to, like, fucking blow off so much steam and just, like, everybody's just going to have so much sex. It's going to be awesome. And so that's the media presentation, or, like, the folk narrative. I feel like that's being, that was that was what I thought was going to happen. I thought it was going to be, I mean, I've talked about it, right? And I mean, when I go to the club, when I go to Niagara, I see, like, the same thing I saw in college. I just see all these, like, brutally alpha, aggro, tall, super genetic, uber ubermensch, and they're all going to procreate with each other. I mean, they're not looking for one of a kind, scrawny. They want to fuck some guy who's 6'2" and works for Morgan Stern or whatever. Because he's 6'2" and he goes to Soul Cycle, or he goes jogging, or has a gym membership. I'm in the intellectual gym. I think. I mean, not that these people think I'm smart or anything either. So I don't know. I have been trying to predominantly just try to get these videos done, and the shoot that was supposed to be on Friday has been pushed back to July 9th. So it is just kind of like this, like, thing that just kind of keeps getting dragged out to, like, get that done. Because once I get that done, then kind of for the rest of the summer, I've got kind of more time to myself to work on my own things. I've got the New York Poetry Festival coming up. That's the end of July, so I got to get my shit together for that. That's going to be kind of my big push for the next month. I'd like to get some kind of reading set up before that, and maybe in early July. I'd like to continue to do club dates where I do solo performances, so I'm going to try to set something up. I might try to reach out to Much More's about doing the open mic there that we were going to set up before the freaking pandemic. Now that I've just booked my own show, I don't really want to go back to doing open mics. I would rather just, like, put on my own shows. If I can get people to come out, what the fuck? If I can put flyers up and get 20 people to come out to a gig, what the fuck do I even need to do an open mic for? So I'm going to try and maybe focus on that. I don't know. Is this a waste of time? I've been doing this. Most nights I either will go for a walk, I'll go to a reading, or I will do this. Have I been doing this too much? Do I need to... would this time be better spent, for instance, reading more, taking in it, or working on writing? Do I need to kind of more seriously recommit to that? I mean, I still have unrealized film projects. That's one of the things that, that has been frustrating about the return. It hasn't gone like I thought. I mean, I suppose that's just reality, bringing you down to its level. I thought that I would be able to make more film stuff and be able to write stuff for people and get them to be in it and things and do more collaborative work in that way. And it's been, I mean, I've wanted to be, and I've liked the fact that it's like solitary. But I mean, is this even worth doing at this point, or at least doing this much? Nobody's really watching it. I could maybe say what I would like to say more concisely in some kind of other project. I'd like to get back to more editing thing. I mean, it's tricky because I don't want to spend too much time on the computer. This doesn't feel like spending time on the computer. This feels like practice and like sort of a form of live performance. Like I know I can take this skill into a live show, the next live show that I do. I'd like to get another like half an hour, 25-minute set if I could of just me reading and doing riffy lecture. And I will prepare. I mean, I'm still looking for. I mean, last night was KGB open mic. It looked really nice. I would have liked to have gone to that. I mean, yesterday I talked to my brother and my dad the whole day. I was on the phone. And then Sunday I talked to my dad for a couple hours that day too. So I've been catching up with certain things. I finished the editing the last 2 readings today. I got the audio today and I finished editing those. So now I can upload those tomorrow and just get them out, get them off my desk. And then tomorrow when I go, I will upload all of the live on tape Club Fabulous episodes that no one will watch. They're not, I mean, I haven't shared the Don Yorty post yet because although I did, I mean, I still feel a little, I don't know. I don't want to make a big thing out of it, and I still feel a little, I don't want to feel weird about, the circumstances of how it went down. So, I need to make some new episodes for TV. I need to get an iPhone. Certain things, I'm so bad about that stuff, like buying the PA system, getting a new iPhone, just investing money in equipment that I need. Once again, this has been, I mean, to have a new iPhone would really amp up my filmmaking a lot, and it would get me way more, it would get me way more than it cost me. To spend a couple $100 on it would really it would repay tenfold, because suddenly I'd have my voice back and content back. I haven't really been able to make new scenes from life episodes, to be honest, because I don't have a good phone. I've got the editing equipment, but I've been mostly doing live stuff or long talk pieces because I don't even think about filming anything really when I'm out and about, because like my phone just looks like shit. I mean, the camera is just horrible. But once I can get these videos kind of out, the next shoot is July 9th, and then Poetry Festival is July 24th. So then I'll have a little bit of a gap of time where really I just have the whole thing to myself, and I can sort of turn back to my own projects. And I'm going to be better about reaching out and reconnecting with people too. I mean, partially the reason why I haven't done that is just because, well, for one thing, vaccine and things in the pandemic, but also just because I've been busy between shooting the videos, editing them, just kind of, I mean, even the logistics of just like suddenly feeding myself just feels so hard. Like I went to Trader Joe's today, and just getting myself to go to Trader Joe's every week just feels like such a Sisyphean, like pushing the rock up the hill. It just feels like, oh God, I gotta do this again. Every Tuesday, I gotta walk. Oh, it's not even that far. I mean, it's basically 3 blocks, 2.5 blocks, lengthwise. So it's a 15-minute walk. But carrying the groceries home, carrying them up the stairs, it just feels, man, I gotta do this every week for what, the rest of my life? And that's not even enough. Like, I gotta figure out other stuff for dinner. I mean, living on the 4th floor, I think, does that with no elevator. Every time you go out into the world, it's just like a huge decision, because you're like, okay, I'm going down all these fucking stairs. Like, I better make sure I got everything I need. I got the right clothes. I'm not coming back up. And I'm going out to get absolutely everything I'm going to do. And then come back with the least in one trip. Today was the 50th anniversary of the release of Joni Mitchell's Blue album. So I listened to that. It's got California on it and Little Green. And what's that song about, Richard? It was pretty good. I liked it. Yeah, I don't know. It's so hard. I mean, I'm obsessed with sex right now. But also, as a man, it feels like completely, especially as a white man, it feels like completely inappropriate for you to be obsessed with sex. And it also feels like women are completely being programmed and targeted, like, against you. Like, there's nothing less cool than, like, just some bro-y fucking jean jacket. And then, I don't know, the girl I was talking to, she texted me on Saturday saying, what are you up to? And I responded perhaps overly enthusiastically, and I responded quickly. And she didn't respond. I still haven't heard from her. It's 4 days later. So I don't know. I probably won't hear from her ever again. That was like the most substantial thing I had going on. I had seen her over a few weeks. She came to my reading. That's the thing. I could have met somebody at my reading. That's one of the best places to meet somebody, to be honest. Like, meeting somebody in real life does happen, but it doesn't happen. To be honest, it's all about equal, I'd say. You meet as many people online dating as you do in real life as you do doing shows. They're all about, I mean, online dating, I would say, is the least successful. I think people are just geared to not connect because it's such an artificial and it's such a programmatic thing that the romance and the kind of like adventure, it's very, I don't know, it's hard for people to lend themselves over to that. I think, with online dating. That's not to say it doesn't work from sometimes, but I'm just shocked at how most of my online dates just like are just like complete duds, because I don't really feel that way. I'm pretty excited to meet most of the people I go on dates with. I'm very rarely like, oh God, whoops, this is gonna be. Maybe that's because I'm the less attractive person on every. I just find that hard to believe. I just don't get it. And so it just gets old. It gets real old doing the same thing over and over and over again, and spending the money and just having it go nowhere. And so I don't know. I got kind of burnt out on it. And I met this girl who I liked. She was supposed to cut my hair. She didn't. And now I probably never hear from her again. I don't even know what I did wrong. Like, I responded quickly, and I responded like, anytime I respond with just like what I would actually say, they stop talking to me. I have to like really think about what to say, how to say it, how it's going to set up. And this, I just kind of like, I don't know. It was a quick, I didn't think about it that long, and I just kind of sent it off. And I don't know. Apparently, with one text, you can do something so bad that like somebody will never want to talk to you again. It's kind of shocking. But that's the other thing that is sort of I'm being reminded of, is like there's a difference between the fantasy that our culture creates and the reality of how this shit actually works. And like, I'm not saying that's like exclusive to women per se, but you have to jump through a lot of fucking hoops. In certain people, like, I don't know, like in this book with the Edna St. Vincent Millay thing, it's just like with a lot of these guys, they would all fall in love with her, for one thing. And she may even do something with them physically, but she was never really interested in them. She didn't really actually get that emotionally attached, or she wasn't that compelled by any of them. But, well, my point, I guess, is more about she would just put them through shit because she knew the way that they felt about her. And, like this girl right now that I was seeing, like it was just going to be like weeks before she would let me like sleep with her, to be honest. Like it would take like at least a month, I would say, of like incrementally stepping it up, and but also just like, I don't know, she's also just been saying weird shit to me. She said that like guys like fall in love with her. She's like a lot of guys like me too much. And it's like, and she's alluded to stuff about how she can't really spend that much time. It's a mistake that she's made in the past. She spends too much time with a guy. She's like, I can't spend that much time with you. And so it's like, you know, in my head, I always have this fantasy, like I'm going to meet somebody, we're going to like fall in love, we're going to want to spend all of our time together, we're going to have sex for like a whole weekend, we're just going to have sex like the whole time, she'll like watch movies with me on the projector, we'll walk around, you know, I've got this amazing apartment, it's like, oh my God, if a girl's going to come over here, she's just going to fall in love with the place, like, we'll walk around the West Village, we'll go to restaurants, like she'll check out my books, you know, we'll go to readings together, you have this fantasy, like it feels like it shouldn't be that hard to find somebody who'd be interested in doing that. I know I could find a guy who'd probably be interested. Tons of my guy friends are like down to hang out and want to get to know me. And yet it's like almost impossible. It almost never happens. Almost never. How every time you do like sleep with somebody, it's like they flee, they don't want to stay the night, or they leave real early the next morning. Like they can't allow themselves to like go too deep into it. They can't allow themselves to get absorbed. I don't know. People are they're just protecting themselves so much all the fucking time. And I don't feel like most interactions go that deep, to be honest. Like I was saying, I expected when I came back here I'd be making movies with people, or like we'd be smoking weed, doing plays. When I ask people to do readings, they don't respond to me. It's like, okay, fuck you, I'll do it. I'm gonna live this way. I'm gonna smoke weed and be an artist all the time. I'm gonna do readings. I'm gonna film shit. Nobody else wants to be involved. I don't know. Like, it just people don't give themselves over to things. I don't get it. They don't give themselves over to love, at least not in my life. I mean, the weekend I spent with my new friend last weekend was nice. I went out there. You know, we went to the store. We got some beverages. We went back to her place. We listened to records. We didn't even do anything physical. We played guitar and sang. I got to know her cats a little bit. We got some food. You know, we didn't do anything physical. I stayed over. The next day, I think we went and got a bagel not far from where she lived, and then, you know, she had to do whatever, and I went on my way. So it was a nice... I mean, I feel like people want to be spooned. People don't want to sleep alone. You know, like in New York, every fucking relationship, it's kind of headed towards you're going to move in together. In fact, that's a big reason to get into a relationship in New York, because you can split your rent. It's like it's not gonna take long if you're in a serious relationship here before you move in together. But I'm not necessarily really trying to be on that track with anybody. I like where I'm living. I just can't really find anybody that is like sort of a peer. Everybody has some kind of different circumstance, more or less, than I do. I don't know. It's just so hard to connect with people, to be honest. Like, I meet a lot of people, and I even connect with a lot of people, but they're all going on their way and living their life, and I would go deeper with certain people, but one of the frustrating things about New York, and sooner or later I think I'm just going to get tired of it, is just like it doesn't really promote social, like, performance of kindness or affability. It's not about smiling or being, like, nice, right? Like, that's the cliche. In New York, people are kind without being nice or whatever. That's true, but I think as a performer, it feels like you have this kind of muted emotional, just because everybody's got this deadpan emotional thing here. And so that comes into the work, and you feel just the judgment, the seriousness of New York. I don't think that's ever going to go away. That's just how it is here. And I just don't know if that's really who I am. You know, maybe I do need to someplace else to like really be appreciated or to blossom or whatever. Uh I love the seriousness of it here, obviously. And I love the aesthetic and everything, and the lifestyle, and the kind of muted, deadpan, emotional disconnectedness. But it's definitely frustrating being surrounded. That's kind of my bigger point. Is it's frustrating being surrounded by all of this talent, all of this beauty, all these incredible people, and yet we're all socially engineered to like not connect with each other, judge each other. No one's good enough to hang out with us. No one's good so it's like, well, like dating, right? It's just like there's so many beautiful women here. It's insane. It's like it's overabundant. It's different, frankly, than basically any other place I've ever been because it's overabundant. And yet, at least for me, it's not accessible, really. Like, people are so unimpressed by everything. They don't want to connect. They want to discourage you. They want to be unimpressed. They want to be put you on the waiting list, play hard to get, make you wait, make you jump through hoops. You have to do everything right. You do anything wrong, no, that was weird. This guy's weird. Became weird. He said something weird. When really it's just like, I didn't do it exactly. The other thing is the difference between like the way you can cultivate and manicure your like text persona versus what expectation that creates in real life. Like, I feel like every face-to-face interaction now I'm so afraid of because like I feel like I just can't do it right. I feel like nothing I say is going to be like funny or fast. I mean, with these fucking like, online dating messages, I have to take a long time to think of like the best, funniest, tightest like thing that's definitely going to get like a return. You have to set up and almost like force the return. You have to almost like predict like a response, and like it's almost like you're shaping you're saying what you're saying the way you're saying it in order to provoke this exact response, because if you don't, they won't respond. And to be honest, with these messages, you're trying to lead it to getting a drink. That's it. That's all you're trying to do with these apps, is set up a meetup in real person, because it doesn't matter what the fucking what you think through the vibe of the app. Until you meet in real life, you don't know shit. I mean, the one girl I was seeing, I was really excited to meet, and we did hit it off, surprisingly. That's why I'm like a little confused that she just like totally stopped responding. I mean, what I said was not that embarrassing or bad, I don't think. The particularly, and not to be too gross or on the nose about this, but like the expectation that like internet porn culture fucking sets up for people and the sexual availability and eagerness of these women versus the way it really works, it's completely different. So, all these movies, it's just like these women are just like giving themselves to these men. And that is not the frame. That's not how it actually works. At least not for me. Maybe if you're Drake or something. But for most guys, it's like you really have to work for it. And even, to be honest, a lot of like the hottest, best relationships I had, that was like almost one of the conditions. My friend who I went out with from Florida, she wouldn't even go on a date. I met her earlier in the summer, in like May or June. She wouldn't even go on a date with me until the day I left for New York in August. Like, she kind of kept me at arm's length for like a few months before she'd even go on a date with me. And even then, it was still kind of like, you could tell she had already made the decision. It was like the date and everything was just playing out something she had like allowed herself to do. So it wasn't even about necessarily like how smooth I was or how it went, even though it did go well and that was important, right? But like, I didn't meet her online. I met her in real life. So she kind of knew who I was. When she agreed to go on a date with me, it was like she already knew what she was, who I was kind of. And then this other girl who I had a nice relationship with, who was a playwright, we didn't have sex for like a few weeks when we first started going out because of for some reason. And it's like, this is not unusual to be like they always have to like put you through some kind of fucking thing that makes it seem like, okay, well, I didn't just sleep with this guy. We waited, or, I mean, if they're famous or something, that's a different thing. Then you can do whatever you want, but, I don't know. I'm hoping to just have it happen. I mean, the other thing with this online, you're just always starting from scratch. You're always just starting a fucking interaction from square one. And, okay, texting, you got to do this right. That's going to take all day. And then you set up the meeting. So that's that's already a few hours. And then you do the meetup. That doesn't go anywhere. Then you're back to square one. Best case scenario with the shit, it's like I meet up with somebody, we might kiss or make out a little bit, and then they got to go, and we might meet up again. But generally not. So I haven't gotten to second base even. Anyway, that's what's new with me. I'm going to sign off here. I'm going to do some reading and some Hinge messaging. Getting desperate. That doesn't help either. It's not a good cologne. Desperation by Frankly Fabulous. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Hopefully you're doing better with the online than I am. Good night.